One forgotten letter buried in my mom's attic uncovered a secret that turned my quiet life in Ohio into a journey of lies, family mysteries, and a father I never knew existed. My name is Daniel. I'm 25 years old, and I live in a quiet town in Ohio. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, where the biggest event of the year is the county fair, and where life moves at a steady, predictable pace. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to stumble into a mystery that would upend everything I thought I knew. But one ordinary afternoon, a single letter I found in my mom's drawer changed my entire life. It all started when I decided to clean the attic. It was a crisp fall day, the kind where the air smells like leaves and wood smoke. The trees outside our old Victorian house were turning shades of amber and crimson, and I'd been putting off the attic cleanup for weeks. Mom had been asking me to tackle it since summer, but I'd always found an excuse: work, friends, or just plain laziness. That Saturday, though, I ran out of reasons to procrastinate. With a thermos of coffee and a playlist of classic rock, I climbed the creaky wooden stairs to the attic, not knowing I was about to step into something much bigger than a dusty chore. The attic was a maze of forgotten things: boxes of Christmas decorations, my old baseball trophies, stacks of yellowed books, and furniture that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The air was thick with dust, and the single bulb hanging from the ceiling cast long shadows across the floorboards. I started sorting through the clutter, separating what could be donated from what needed to go to the dump. That's when I found it. An old wooden chest tucked in the far corner, half hidden under a moth-eaten quilt. The chest wasn't locked, but it was heavy, its hinges rusted from years of neglect. I pried it open, expecting to find more of Mom's old knickknacks, maybe some costume jewelry or faded photo albums. Instead, I found a bundle of letters tied with a faded red ribbon. They were addressed to my mom, but the handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp and slanted, like it belonged to someone who wrote with purpose. Most of the letters were postmarked from the late 1990s, a few years before I was born. Curious, I untied the ribbon and pulled out the topmost letter. The paper was brittle, the ink slightly faded, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Eleanor, I know you told me to stay away, but I can't. Not when I know the truth about what happened. You can't keep this secret forever. He deserves to know who he is." My heart skipped a beat. Mom's name is Eleanor, and I'm her only child. Was this me? What secret? My hands trembled as I read on, the letter hinting at something vague but heavy. A past my mom had never mentioned, a choice she'd made, and someone she'd left behind. The letter was signed simply J, with no last name, no clue to who this person was. I dug through the rest of the bundle, but none of the other letters were as explicit. They spoke of meetings that never happened, promises broken, and a life Mom had walked away from. One mentioned a place called Willow Creek, a town I'd never heard of, somewhere out west. I sat back on the attic floor, the letter clutched in my hand, my mind racing. Mom had always been open with me, or so I thought. She'd raised me alone, telling me my dad was a high school sweetheart who'd left before I was born. She never spoke of him with bitterness, just a quiet acceptance, and I'd never pressed for details. But this letter suggested something else entirely, a secret she'd buried, something that might involve me. Who was Jay? What truth was I supposed to know? I should have confronted her right then, but something stopped me. Maybe it was fear of what I'd learn, or maybe it was the weight of knowing that once I asked, there'd be no going back. Instead, I tucked the letter into my jacket pocket and went downstairs, pretending everything was normal. Mom was in the kitchen, humming as she chopped vegetables for dinner, her graying hair tied back in a loose bun. She smiled when she saw me, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. "Find anything interesting up there?" she asked, stirring a pot of soup. "Just old stuff," I lied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Lots of dust." That night, I couldn't sleep. The letter burned a hole in my mind, every word replaying like a broken record. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I had to find out what it meant. I didn't know where to start, but Willow Creek seemed like the only lead. A quick search online revealed it was a small town in Montana, population barely 2,000, nestled in the Rockies. It was a long shot, but I had a week of vacation time saved up from my job at the hardware store. I told Mom I was taking a spontaneous road trip to clear my head, and though she raised an eyebrow, she didn't press. The drive to Montana took 2 days. I crossed state lines, passing endless fields and sleepy towns, the letter tucked in my glove compartment like a talisman. When I reached Willow Creek, it was smaller than I'd imagined. A main street with a diner, a gas station, and a handful of shops, all framed by towering mountains. I checked into a motel and started asking around, showing the letter to anyone who'd listen. Most folks were friendly but clueless, shrugging at the name, Jay, and my vague description of a man who might have known my mom 25 years ago. Then at the diner, I met Clara, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She was the town's unofficial historian, the kind of person who knew everyone's business. When I showed her the letter, her expression changed, like she'd seen a ghost. "Where'd you get this?" she asked, her voice low. "Found it in my mom's things," I said. "I'm trying to figure out what it means." "Do you know who Jay is?" Clara hesitated, then leaned in. "You're Alina's boy, aren't you?" My stomach dropped. "How do you know her name?" she sighed, glancing around the diner to make sure no one was listening. "Alina lived here years ago, before you were born. She was involved with someone, Jonah Harper." Jonah, the J from the letter. Clara told me he was a local, a quiet man who'd worked as a mechanic and kept to himself. He and my mom had been close, closer than she'd ever let on. But something happened, something that made Mom leave Willow Creek abruptly, never to return. Clara didn't know the details, but she pointed me to Jonah's old house, a cabin on the edge of town, now abandoned. I drove there that afternoon, my heart pounding. The cabin was run down, its windows boarded up, the yard overgrown with weeds. I broke in through a loose board, half expecting to find nothing but cobwebs. Instead, I found a shrine to my mom's past, photos of her, younger and smiling, pinned to the walls. There were letters, too, drafts of the ones I'd found, never sent. And in a locked drawer, I found a journal, Jonah's journal. Page after page detailed his life with Mom, their dreams of starting a family, and a falling out that shattered everything. The last entry was dated a month before I was born. "She's gone. Took everything with her, including the truth. If she ever tells him, I hope he finds me." I was the him. Jonah was my father. The realization hit me like a freight train. Mom had lied, not just about my dad leaving, but about who he was, where he was, and why she'd left him. I drove back to the motel in a daze, the journal heavy in my hands. I wanted to call Mom to demand answers, but I needed to know more first. I tracked down Jonah's last known address through Clara, who'd heard he'd moved to Billings after Mom left. It took another day of driving, but I found him. Jonah Harper was older now, his hair gray, his face lined with years of hard living. He didn't recognize me at first, but when I showed him the letter, his eyes filled with tears. "You're her son," he said, not a question. Over coffee in his small apartment, he told me the truth. He and Mom had been in love, planning a life together, but she'd discovered something about his family, something dangerous, that made her run. He wouldn't say what, only that it was tied to a secret he'd sworn to keep. I pressed him, but he clammed up, saying it was for my own safety. "Your mom wanted to protect you," he said. "That's why she never told you about me." I returned to Ohio with more questions than answers. When I confronted Mom, she broke down, admitting everything, Jonah, Willow Creek, the secret she'd fled from. It wasn't just about Jonah's family. It was about a choice she'd made, one that put her in the crosshairs of people she wouldn't name. She'd left to keep me safe, to give me a normal life, but normal was gone now. The letter had opened a door I couldn't close. I started digging, chasing leads Jonah had let slip, names, places, fragments of a past that didn't add up. Each clue pulled me deeper into a world of secrets, lies, and danger I wasn't prepared for. My quiet life in Ohio was over, replaced by a relentless need to know the truth. And so, I kept searching, not knowing that every step was leading me toward a truth that might destroy everything I thought I knew about myself. So that is for today's story, and click on this story will blow your mind. If you like this story, then share it with others and subscribe for this type of more stories.